Political journalist Theo Usherwood. Good morning to you.
Very good morning to you, Julia. Thank you for inviting me.
I can see a tiny little hint of blue sky outside the window, which is shocking me, given the forecast today.
Otherwise, it's chucking it down, isn't it? And it's a bit like that, I think, you know, in terms of what we're going to be seeing up in Liverpool later from Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor.
It really is. It is quite extraordinary. The front page stories are very, very different today, depending on whether you're reading, you know, the Times or you're reading the Telegraph. Because I mean, the Telegraph today is sort of saying, you know, UK must accept hard times or risk ruin. The Times have got an interview with, well, an op-ed written by the Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, saying good times ahead. I mean, it'd be nice to know when we're going to get it.
So we're going to get... And this is part of the problem, actually, is we've had so much gloom, whether it's the £22 billion black hole and the inheritance from the Conservatives, that actually, and this is the argument that critics are making, is that actually, Julia, it just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, that actually we find ourselves in, you know, downtrodden. People don't want to spend money because all they hear from the government is actually we're in such a...
That's what we're told. People are saving. People are being told there's going to be pain ahead. Actually, the word painful has been used about the coming budget, yes, October 30th.
By the Prime Minister.
People don't know what's going to go on. They think the taxes are going to go up. You know, the inflation still isn't down to where it should be. And he said unemployment, again, there's a lot of hidden unemployment. And basically people are saying we're not going to spend our money. We're just going to sit tight and see what's going on. Of course, that has the impact. Consumer confidence goes down, it damages the economy.
And of course, it suits the Labour government to say that the situation is dire, because then they can put it all onto the Conservatives and the 14 years of mismanagement and misrule. And that's a problem because, as you say, people don't then want to go and spend money, and we end up in this perpetual cycle spiralling downwards. Rachel Reeves, according to the Times today, is saying actually she wants to get us back, you know, those sunlit uplands. But again, question marks. When is that going to happen?
And anyway, when do they have time to do that? Because they're all at Taylor Swift concerts and with personal shoppers. I don't know when they have time to get anything done to do with running the country.
Yes, and there's a twin-track approach, isn't there? The stories are the same, whether it's freebies, holidays in New York, birthday parties that aren't personal events.
How many times, by the way? OK, here's a question. How many times has someone, A, bought your clothes, B, given you, you know, free concert tickets, like, you know, a grander pop Taylor Swift top-notch box tickets? How many times has someone said, would you like to stay in my £2.5 million penthouse apartment in New York? How many times has someone said, you know, let me pay for your clothes? How many times has this happened to most people?
It's happened to me once. I did get invited to the cricket once. I saw about an over of cricket.
Excellent.
and then I sat in a tent pouring with rain for the rest of the day and ate.
I mean, that's basically the best way of doing cricket, just alcohol in a tent.
But it was a lovely day.
Love cricket. That's just, you know, we're all there.
But it doesn't happen for most people, no.
It doesn't. And this is the thing, when they justify it, and we've had Rachel Reeves doing the morning round interviews. Should have come on mic. She'd have picked up some common sense. I mean, defending all this, like, oh, you know, a very good friend of mine. Look, it was a very good friend of mine. She wanted to help me during my campaign, and so she gave me clothes. With all due respect, Rachel, I'm not one to bloody criticise in terms of clothing, but I mean, you know, she wasn't that good a friend. She could have got you some nicer clothes. I always think she looks bizarrely dowdy. I mean, I think I'm all in favour of just wearing the suit uniform. No one, but at least wear something that looks like it didn't come from the sale rack at H&M, love. But this is the thing. At the time when we got, there's going to be a vote which is going to be, they think, delayed from today by trade unions, including Unite Union, very powerful. You know, Sharon Graham, very good performer in broadcasting, and she's basically saying, you know, they want the winter fuel payments put back onto, you know, given back to all those 10 million pensioners who've lost out. There's going to be a vote over that. Almost certainly it's going to be a vote to basically say that the Labour Party should dump that policy to get rid of it for pretty much most pensioners. And you've got that going on at the same time as all this debate over freebies and the justifications that have been given. Angela Rayner on TV doing the Sunday round yesterday, justifying lots of things. You know, look, yeah, a very good friend. I'm really good friends with Wahid Ali, this Labour Party donor, who is at conference this week. You know, he lent me his apartment. He didn't know, however, that she was bringing her, let's go for it, inverted commas, friend, then Labour MP Sam Tarry, friend. A lot of benefits coming with that friendship, but anyway, you know, the benefits like, I don't know, staying in Lord Wahid Ali's apartment. But even when Angela Rayner was talking about it, she's talking about how, well, Lord Ali didn't know that he was staying at the apartment. Sam Tarry was, yeah, he paid for his own plane ticket. He was on a different holiday. I was on a holiday. And then, well, weirdly, this guy happened to stay in the same apartment as me that I borrowed from a Labour peer who's a major donor. The whole thing just They can't just keep saying, oh, well, we're all just really good friends and Lord Ali's just a lovely guy who just sprays his money around to anyone who asks.
You go back to that speech on the steps of Downing Street from Keir Starmer. This was going to be a government of public service. It was going to be there were going to be tough times ahead, but we were all going to be in it together. And you have Keir Starmer, for example, trying to make this argument that he needs to be in a corporate box rather than be in the stands when he watches his football team. Actually, the choice isn't between the stands and a corporate box. The choice, if you're a pensioner who is losing their winter fuel allowance, the choice for them is between heating and eating. The choice is between the stands and getting a Sky Sports package and watching the football at home, isn't it? If we're all in it together...
I don't think pensioners can afford it.
No, but...
Yeah, I was at the Emirates Stadium yesterday, actually seeing Arsenal ladies drawing, actually, with Man City ladies. Very similar, well, in fact, exactly the same result as we saw from the from men's matches later on. But no, I mean, you look up at that box and you just think, oh, that's all very nice. I couldn't work out what is the difference between you sitting in that box security-wise than you sitting in the stands. And we know Rishi Sunak, when he was Prime Minister, regularly sat in the stands, and Theresa May at the cricket, and they're like, and John Major, and come on, it's an absolute load of nonsense, isn't it? No one believes any of this stuff. They think it's all an absolute nonsense. The question we're asking today is actually about Angela Rayner, the latest revelation. Now, this isn't about a freebie. This is about something that you and I, the taxpayer, are paying at. She's now accused, as Deputy Prime Minister, of hiring a £68,000 a year, what's called vanity photographer, as Deputy Prime Minister. It's the first time the Deputy Prime Minister is believed to have had a taxpayer-funded staffer to basically take photographs of all her trips and the like. Now, the key interesting thing about this, of course, is that... because there's always a tweet. There's always a tweet. Now, the argument is this is paid for by the taxpayer. It's not a freebie.
Yes.
This is something that civil servants do. They want to boost the image of the department. Well, I don't know why it's the job of civil servants to try and boost the image of the department. Just get on and do your job and then we'll have a favourable image of you. But when she was Deputy Labour leader, Angela Rayner, in 2021, criticised Boris Johnson because he, of course, had a vanity photographer, in fact, a whole number of them when he was Prime Minister, and said, instead of spending more taxpayers' money on photographers, the Prime Minister should prioritise supporting hard-pressed families and the children who are going hungry during this crisis. I mean, I'm sorry, she actually wrote this. This is about when the government was refusing to extend free school meals during half-term and pushing ahead with plans to cut £1,000 from universal credit. So she criticised the then Prime Minister. Now she's Deputy Prime Minister. Her own department is spending £68,000 paying someone to take pictures of her at a time when they are taking £300 a year away from some of the poorest pensioners. I mean, you couldn't make it up.
It's like for like, because, of course, what Boris Johnson was proposing was a civil service photographer. That's what she was criticising. This isn't a political appointment, as previous appointments have been.
Here's a question. Do they know we can see them? I've asked this question in a column before. Do they actually know that, like, things are... You know, there's a record of things that they say and do. There's videos of them. There's their own tweets, their own interviews. Do they think that it was like July the 4th was year zero and we just don't know it? I just find it mind-blowing. Either that or they think we're all completely and utterly stupid.
They haven't made that gear change from being in opposition, where they base that opposition on the behaviour of the Conservative government, and now they find themselves in government, and it's that accusation of hypocrisy. They could have done all of these things, Julia, and nobody would bat an eyelid, as long as they hadn't been hypocrites. As long as they hadn't pretended otherwise.
Don't criticise people for doing stuff you're going to do. Again, if there's a good reason to do it, well, then there was... Boris Johnson, I don't think there was. I don't think it's inappropriate for there to be a photographer for the Prime Minister but I don't, actually. I think, you know, someone whose job it is to follow him around for major events. We see the American President and for historic purposes. I think there's a perfectly good justification for that. The Deputy Prime Minister? I mean, give me a break. I want to also just talk about something else. I mean, we're going to talk to Peter Cardwell in just a few moments, live from Labour conference. But I want to talk about Mohammed Al-Fayed and these sexual assault claims. Watch the documentary, the Muse documentary about the allegations against him. I mean, I've got to be honest with you, it was absolutely harrowing. But not a surprise, because I worked on the London Evening Standard back in the late 1990s, in my 20s. This stuff was all well known at the time. Mohammed Al-Fayed was in the news constantly at that time. This was, of course, you know, the head of Diana's death when Dodi was with Diana. But he was in the news constantly anyway. He loved publicity all the time. But it was common knowledge, even then, that this was a sexual predator. And people say, well, why didn't you do anything about it? I mean, documentary makers were. People were writing articles. There were articles in Vanity Fair. They were sued. There were Channel 4 documentaries, other documentaries. Of course, they basically got sort of litigated out of existence. He was incredibly litigious and very, very rich, and a billionaire, effectively. But it was known. And, some of these cases went to the police, went even as far to the Crown Prosecution Service. You'll never guess who was Director of Public Prosecutions some of the time when these allegations were being made. And, I mean, this is going to come as a complete shock to everybody. I know. Keir Starmer, he was Director of Public Prosecutions. I mean, this does smack of the idea, frankly, that, let's be honest, that very rich men, there have been allegations against a lot of others over the years, very, very rich men can basically get away with rape and sexual assault if you're willing to be, bullshit enough, to sue people enough, you're willing to pay women off, get non-disclosure agreements, and if you are, basically, you're going to employ a load of people who are willing to do your dirty work for you and to defend you. And it appears that that's what's happened. Basically, we have legalised rape and sexual assault if you're rich enough.
He's got away with it. For all of those women who have been sexually assaulted or raped by Mohammed Al-Fayed, he's got away with it. He's dead.
We can only say this now because he's dead.
And you can't sue somebody for libel if you're dead. Those are the protections. But he's got away with it. And for all of those lives that have been ruined or people left with severe trauma as a result of what he's been done, there won't be any justice because he won't have his day in court.
Yeah.
And you've got to
he won't go to prison. He died wearing his Versace shirts, with his yachts instead of actually, facing justice. But this is the thing, again and again and again. Now, I know this is all before Me Too movement and things. We're told things have changed. I don't think they have changed that much.
We need to know exactly why that decision, when it went to the Crown Prosecution Service in 2009 and it went to the Crown Prosecution Service when Alison Saunders was the DPP, we need to know why that decision was taken not to bring charges against Mohammed Al-Fayed. We need to understand exactly what the reasoning was because, as you say, from your time in the Evening Standard, everybody was aware that this man was a predator. Why was he allowed to get away with it? Because you would think that the buck would stop at the CPS.
I'm just wondering also, like a lot of people who worked for him, and there's people, there was security detail who talked about what was going on. It was well known. Genuinely, how much money would someone have to pay? Because for me, the sum is zero. I would not accept any sum of money to work for someone like that if you knew what they were doing, to cover up what they were doing. I am appalled. There are so many people who worked at Harrods, so many people who worked for him directly, who defended him publicly and privately behind the scenes, who with this is the same as the people who led budding actresses up to Harvey Weinstein's hotel room knowing that they'd be raped, and then they would just sort of collect them afterwards. I mean, I just don't know how these people sleep at night is an absolute mystery to me, but I'd like them to be sleeping in a prison cell. Call me old-fashioned.